Hello and welcome to Whisky.com, where fine spirits meet. And I am in the rural part of Ireland. And if you think of Ireland, usually you think of cows, or maybe you think of sheep, but there's pretty much everything grown in here in Ireland. And I'm standing here and Tinnashrule Farm, and they grow their barley for the Waterford Distillery. And yeah, today we're gonna look at the Waterford Distillery and their style of making whiskey and their fixture on how single farm whiskies are actually produced. And one of these single farms is the Tinnashrule Farm. Behind me is a winter barley that has been sown last year in November, and it's already a bit higher, but unfortunately this year is actually not meant for making whiskey, or not Waterford whiskey. So we're actually going to move over one field to see how the barley is doing for the Waterford Distillery. That will be then at some point harvested and will be turned into Waterford whiskey. So this here is one of the fields from the Tinnashrule Farm, and this here is actually the spring barley that is meant for the Waterford Distillery. The whole field has 3.5 hectares, and it is a very light soil, and that is really good for growing barley. If you have a heavy soil that is more suitable for wheat and other kind of crops, well, just not enough interest here, because the Waterford Distillery just does just malted barley. And the whole farm has about 70 hectares of land where they grow their crops on. 15 hectares of that land is suitable for the barley that is needed at Waterford, and that gives you about 110 tons of barley that can be then turned into whiskey. The farm here is really into sustainability. They're doing a few test runs down there in terms of how they have to prepare their fields to get a really sustainable way of growing barley, good quality, good yield, and you don't damage the planet in any way. So what they also do here is they record a lot of stuff like rainfall and temperature also, and that is a lot of scientific stuff that is going into how good is the barley, and that is really interesting for the Waterford Distillery, as they can see how good is the whiskey that comes out afterwards. Still after the harvest, there's still quality control where you measure moisture and other contents and other scientific stuff that is required for a good barley for whiskey. And at some points of the year, or at some years, it is actually rejected. So not every farm, not every year, the barley is suitable for the Waterford whiskey. So this might be turned into Waterford whiskey, hopefully, but it might also not be. So we'll see how this year develops and if this whiskey and this barley ends up in the whiskey. Behind me is a very interesting map. It's the Provenance Map, and it shows farms that have supplied the distillery with barley during the last season. And the map is the southeast of Ireland, and it shows the terrain, the earth, the soil of what is there at this part of Ireland, and the different kind of soil. If you have a rich or a mineral low soil, so it really shows you where it is grown differently at the different regions of Ireland. The discs then symbolize the farms, and the names on the disc are the names of the farmers. So the blue ones are the normal farms with the normal barley. The dark green are the farms that have the organic barley. Then the light green, the lime ones, that are one with the biodynamic barley. And the purple ones here, just one, are the ones with the heritage. The heritage are very, very old types of barley that are not grown anymore, except in very, very few farms, because they have low yield. But they're very interesting because it's old barley like it was used to be grown. So this here is the Cathedral. Why is it called the Cathedral? it has an echo because it's so big and it's like long, like a cathedral. And on the sides we have the harvests from different farms in different stalls. And behind me, for example, we have Seamus Duggan. He is from Lakefield. Currently we have the Lakefield 1.1, and that would have come from his farm. So this stuff that is in there will be turned into spirit, and in years then will become the Lakefield 5.1, 5.2, depends on how many bottlings come out of this batch. Yeah, so the chapel can hold 28 of these stalls. That was okay enough for them at the beginning. Now they actually got better, got bigger, got really into the distilling. Now they actually have built another smaller building that they call the chapel, and they can take about 35 farms every year. So yeah, that's quite amazing that they have a year's production already stored. And when you then look at how many different farms they have had barley from, it's actually 107. So they are switching between farms, they're trying out new stuff. Some of them, like the ones with Seamus, it actually worked pretty well. So they are into the 4th or 5th batch now. So they have kind of a core range now a bit with these farms. But yeah, most of them is a bit switching. What is also very interesting is now a third of their barley comes from organic, biodynamic, or old varieties. So old varieties date back to stuff that was grown like back when in 1890 or so, end of 19th century, which are really different and really really old and really interesting barley and make really different whiskey. Yeah, so this is the cathedral where all the background is happening, so they can actually sort out what becomes what whiskey and the secret behind the single farm whiskies. All the unmalted barley gets in one batch to the malter, and it's actually a smaller malting facility of a bigger malting company, so they are actually suited for 100 tons of unmalted barley. Out come 75 tons of malted barley, and that's actually what the distillery was modeled after. So they built the processes in the distillery after these 75-ton batches, just to get this idea of a single farm whiskey going. So the intake also takes 3 times 75 tons of malted barley in their bins, so they can store 3 batches of single farm whiskies here on, or malt here on the campus. And yeah, the second most ingredient for the whiskey is the water. So a bit uphill they have 3 wells, and these 3 wells have such good water that they actually don't have to treat the water in any kind of way, and it is just used inside the distillery. So now let's see how the malt is then treated inside the brewery. The thing with single farm whiskey is that if you have barley from a lot of different farms, then the size of the actual grain itself varies a lot. So when you have a mill, like this mill next to me, there's always, you adjust the mill to the grain that you have, and usually you take a lot of grain and then you run the mill at this size of grain and everything is fine. After you've adjusted it, everything is fine. But once you take another batch in with a different size, you have to adjust it again. So they have like 9 tons of batches of 9 tons coming in, and they do 8 of them to then come up to the 75. So it's a little bit more than 9 tons. And that means they have 8 batches. And for the first batch is always a bit tricky to get the size right. What you do is it comes in, it's not a roller mill, it's not a hammer mill, it's a disc mill. So disc mills are like, you know, from the very old style of milling where you have the old stone discs going at it, and it's the same way, except that you have the gap in between is very, very precise, and the discs are not made of crude stone but stainless steel. And so they adjust the gap, and it's milled here and put into the mashing. And during the mashing, you heat it up and you have a mash, and you heat it up about 2, 3, 4 times to get all of the sugars out. And after that, it goes into the filtration. And just after the filtration, you can actually measure if you've done the right milling with the right gap. If it is too coarse or if it is too thin and too fine of a mill. So this way is very difficult for the brewer to adjust to all the different farms. Luckily, they have some farms that they reuse because they were really satisfied with the quality what came out. And when you take the same farm, then is usually the same gap. Also, there are some measurements that they can take hints from what gaps you have to use, and that gives you a good enough result. But it is still, this process here at Waterford is really delicate because they have so many different types of varieties of barley and so many variety of different farms. What we have here is the mash filter, or what they call it here at Waterford, the terrain filter. So that filters out the solid bits from the mash. And if you've ever sieved something and you had a lot of bits in it, then you realize the first thing what happens with your sieve is it clogs. And if you have something that is very fine, then the filter clogs and it just doesn't go through at all. With a normal roller mill, you have a coarse enough grist that it builds kind of a cake that everything can run through and everything is fine with a false floor. But here, you have to have a really big surface area. So how a mash filter works is not that it comes in one end and goes in on the other side, because the first filter would clog and everything wouldn't work. So what they do is the mash comes in through this pipe here, and you have little holes that go into the big surface area in the middle. And the big surface in the area in the middle is the filter area. So it distributes all the way back and all the way forth. So you have a really big surface area of filter. What you then do is you run your mash in. What they then do is they have these tubes here. These run pressurized air in, so it compresses it, presses all the liquid material out that flows through the pipe at the very bottom to the front and is liquid and ready for use. And then you can open the filter, all the solid material drops down. There's a conveyor belt that takes it out and it's off to the cattle feed. And we are following the good mash into the fermentation. This building here and the equipment they actually bought for the Waterford Distillery was an old Guinness brewery. So they have really big fermentation tanks. The washbacks here are 100,000 liters capacity. They have 4 of them. They fill it only up to about 80,000 liters. And what they're aiming for is they really want to emphasize the farm, the single farm in the Waterford. So they don't do any experiments with the fermentation. They do a minimum of 120 hours of fermentation duration. So they fill it up, add the yeast and wait 120 hours. That's 5 days. So basically what they distill is what they actually brewed last week. I say a minimum of 120 hours. They have 80,000 liters of wash. And when you distill something, you can just take out in batches and empty the tank, one batch at a time. And for the time it takes the tank to empty and put it through the wash still, it takes about 50 hours. So the last bit that you take out of the fermentation tank is, that's around 170 hours of fermentation. So we have a fermentation duration between handy 20 hours and 170 hours. So what kind of wash will come out? It's gonna be really fruity and really floral. And it is gonna be consistent because after 120 hours, there's not that much going on. For fermentation wise, the first 48 hours is alcoholic fermentation, And after that comes malolactic fermentation. That's when the flavors really start to change within the wash, and the flavors for the whiskey are being created. Yeah, so after that we have a look at the stills. The heart piece of the distillery, the stills. Waterford just got new stills. Yeah, it's a very young distillery, but they just got last year in 2021, in July, they got new stills. And why is that? Because they started off with very old stills. The stills were back from 1968 from Inverleven. They were decommissioned in Inverleven, and then they were transported to Bruichladdich. Actually, the wash still that they had was the wash still that was standing right in front of Bruichladdich. The other one was back in storage, so there was kind of decoration at Bruichladdich. And they used the stills for a few years, but they were really worn. So why they got these old stills? That's because the stills market is really bought out. If you want to have a still, you have waiting times 3 years plus. So they didn't want to wait for that long. So they actually got these old stills, got them refurbished and used them for a couple of years, and then had them replaced exactly with the same stills, just in brand new, when they had the waiting time, because they could use the old stills. Yeah, let's talk about what they do here. The stills, the wash still is 19,000 liters capacity. They fill it up to 17,000 liters and they distill it. What you can see here with the condensers is that they distill a bit slower, actually quite a number, quite slower, significantly slower. That what you can see is that the condensers are not really colored differently when it comes down. So you could do about double, triple speed with that wash still, and still the condenser would condense it fully back into a liquid. So they actually do that because they want to have a really good separation of alcohol. They have a still that has no reflux bowl, it's not very tall or have any other big reflux things going on, so they boil a lot slower. So with a slower boil, you have more natural reflux, more copper contact, finer separation of alcohol, and therefore a finer spirit. When you look at the coloring of the condensers, you can see the spirit still is going very slow, and that's because at the spirit still part, the separation of the alcohol really determines what the flavors come out. I've just got some of the spirit that running through the distillery right now, and it's about 70% alcohol right now, which is, this here is not the spirit that would go into the cask, because this is just 1 point of time in the still. In the spirit safe, everything is mixed, so you have the whole mixture of one batch, which is then harmonized. But the spirit runs out, that comes out, is different from beginning to end. And I have 1 point of time here for an organic spirit grown by Ross and Amy Jackson. Very fruity. Pretty light. 70% is really high, but not that high. Now it comes a bit more volume, but it really has a maltiness, and that's what the distilleries want to look for. They want to free the flavors from the barley, or liberate these flavors from the barley. That's what they are saying here, and they really want to put the emphasis on the ingredient, on the malt, on the barley. That is the emphasis here. So yeah, after it's been distilled, it is then off to the warehouse. So we've unfortunately been unable to get into the warehouses, but here I'm sitting with Ned Gann. You're the master distiller, and you've been 7 years here at the distillery, and you've been 15 years in the brewing industry. So a lot of experience. So you've been like 22 years here on site.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, so
thank you very much for having us.
No
here.
problem, delighted to have you here as well. Yeah, so I worked for Diageo or Guinness for 15 years, and then here with 7 years. Yeah.
So how's the transition? Did you like it?
Yeah, no, it's been great setting up the distillery and getting involved in it. So this is actually my first whiskey job, but yeah, so every day is a learning day. But yeah, no, we're going very well. Yeah.
Nice. So how many warehouses do you have? How are the warehouses? How is that cask business and everything?
Yeah, so at the moment we have 6 full warehouses and 3 more that are built and ready to be filled. So at the moment we'd have about 40,000 casks filled, and I suppose we're a little bit different in that we use a combination of casks per farm. So we use American ex-bourbon casks, American virgin casks, French wine casks, and what we call the VDN or Vin de Natural casks, sweet fortified wines. So each farm is filled into a percentage of those. So 50% into American first fill, 20% American virgin, 15% into French wine, and 15% into European oak, but is VDN.
Do you keep it the same for all?
Yeah, not exactly the same. There might be a couple of casks in the difference, but the main reason we're doing that is because we're natural whiskey, so we're not using any colorings, so we don't use that E150.
Okay,
so we're getting colour from the cask, and also caramel will give you sweetness.
Yes.
But we don't use that, so we're using, say, the VDN cask to give us some sweetness as well.
So you're really going in just for the natural product?
Natural product, yeah. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So I've actually been this morning at the Tinnashrule Farm with John, and now we have the first product from him.
Yeah.
Can you give me the bottle?
Yeah. So this is John's farm, single farm, Tinnashrule in County Wexford, and a lovely spot. And John's a gentleman as well.
Oh yeah, he's lovely.
Yeah. So
oh wait, the stopper doesn't have a meaning.
Yes. So I suppose we have what we call Vinlock stoppers and our glass stopper, and they keep the whiskey very clean. It's a very clean stopper. And
okay, we always especially for our customers have a way of explaining how to open a whiskey bottle. This does not apply here because usually you have to twist because of the cork. Yeah. Here you just topple it.
Yeah, push it with our thumb. Yeah,
and
it
then
pops.
it's easy to open.
It's easy to open. Yeah, when I got it first, I was
never do that with a cork.
I was trying to go like that, and it's quite hard to do it like that.
Yes,
but it pops up nicely. And actually, the other thing is, the blue bottle is because we don't want you to see the color of the whiskey. Because if you look at the color of this whiskey, it's a natural color, and if you saw that maybe in a pub or something, you might say,
a bit too light for me.
Yeah, a bit too light for me. So the color is to disguise the color of the whiskey. You shouldn't be buying it on the color of the whiskey.
Like in a blind tasting, same glass as in a blind tasting with the blue glasses.
Yeah.
I like it.
So yeah, it also is a nice looking bottle, but that's one of the reasons that we have a blue glass. So yeah, so the warehouses. We have 6 at the moment, holding about 40,000 casks, and another 3 ready to come online. So it's a big
That's
operation.
a lot of whiskey for. You're running 24/7 here, right?
24/7, 10 months of the year. So we stop for a month in the summer and at Christmas. Yeah. So it's a lot of whiskey. Yeah.
You're not distilling fast, but you're distilling low.
No, yeah, low and slow. It's about quality, not quantity. Yeah.
Okay. So,
So all our whiskies are unchilled filtered, and they're all 50% ABV. So they're a little bit stronger than the norm.
50%.
50%, yeah. And usually what I do is I just look at the legs and the glass and the oils, and we have really good oils.
A little bit of a ready touch to it.
Yeah, there is a little bit of what I would call a peachy hue, and that's probably coming from the casks as well, that we're using some of those wine casks and some of those VDN casks as well. So on the nose, I would say our whiskey is a bit like myself, light and elegant. But what we're looking for is that barley forward nose. Like, it's a single malt. It should have barley of some note. It should be either bread crust or dough or.
Yeah, I've seen that within the new make as well.
Yeah,
it is fruity, definitely.
Yeah.
But it has a malty touch to it, a little bit of I could say also that I could feel like a creamy touch to it.
Yeah. So it's a bit like a malted biscuit. Maybe with a little bit of sometimes we put butter on our biscuits.
Yeah, okay.
And so it reminds me a little bit of that, but it also has a nice red apple note to it.
Yeah, it has a fresh fruity note to it. Definitely. Yeah,
and it just reminds me. It just reminds me of a good red apple, a gala apple, or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, it's not one of these totally red apples, but one of the one of these that are just fresh and nice in between a Granny Smith and one of these very reds. The one in the middle. There. No, I like it.
Yeah. Sláinte.
Sláinte. Transports a lot.
Yeah. So what we're doing with single farms is we're trying to promote the farm, the barley, the flavour. So this is a snapshot of John Crowley's farm. This is from his soil, and what you're getting, I can taste a little bit of a farmy note. A kind of, I would describe it as a soil note a little bit. It has nice pepperiness to it.
And I do like, you do feel a bit of that French wine cask in there. But it has that touch to it. Like I'm amazed how much you got into the malty note.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, and like at the end of the day, it's single malt, so it should have a malty note. It should be there. And the way we distill really slow is to promote the flavours of the barley as well, is to promote that. What I would say is, the barley is the flavour, the distillery then decides the style of spirit. So we have that light, elegant, fruity floral spirit because the way we distill, and then the cask matures and lends itself to micro-oxygenation. So that's what it is. And again, it's dry, but it's chewable as well.
Yeah.
And it has a lovely little linger as well for me.
What I love about it is it transports good amounts of flavor. The 50% is not overwhelming. No. I would have expected a little bit harsher than this 50% what I have in my glass. So it's.
And on the back of each bottle, then we have a terroir code that you can look up some information. And off the top of my head, I'd say this is probably around 3.5 to, it's under 4 years old. This is. So our whiskey is, not old, but punches above that, I think.
Under 4 years old.
Yeah.
Good. You feel that it's a fresh one.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have any problems with that.
No, I'm gonna go back.
And I love the French white note in there. I love it.
Yeah.
So the whole process, I've seen you've built your distillery kind of behind the maltings or the size of the maltings they can do. So how was that idea actually thought of? How would anybody come up with that?
So I suppose it's brainchild of Mark Rainier, who was former CEO at Bruichladdich, and so he came to Ireland in a quest for the best barley in the world, and we believe the best barley in the world is the Irish barley, and we only buy Irish barley, but also in a quest for flavour for whiskey. So his idea was to keep each farm single, so that each farm then is a component or a stepping stone maybe to the cuvée, which is a mixture of the farms. It's the same as the wine concept. So you have the small wines and then you have the big wines, the Grand Vins as such. But each farm then, as you saw at the Cathedral, is kept separate. So the distillery works because we have the Cathedral that keeps the farm separate. And then we just keep it separate throughout the whole process until it gets to casks, and then it's stored separate as well.
Yeah, I think I've heard the word terroir is...
Terroir, yeah.
That is very prominent within Woodford. That is also used a lot within the wine. So it's a bit a hint from the wine.
No, it's more than a hint. It's totally from the wine.
Totally from the wine. Okay, it's not just a bit.
It's the wine concept.
But it works.
Yeah. So for us, it's about the barley, how it's grown, where it's grown, climate, topography, goes to the flavour of the barley.
I would have not expected it. To be honest, if I would have beforehand, I would have been one of the critics like, no, you're gonna totally mix that up. But
Yeah.
I've seen it. You're keeping a really clear record,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you have a lot of labels where everything
Yeah.
is, and it's not mixing up. It's working.
No, and I suppose the reason that probably no one has been talking about it is because it's very difficult to do. It's very difficult to set up, but when it's set up properly, it's actually quite easy then to do it. But it costs a lot of money, and it takes a lot of time to make sure that it's done properly. And on the bottom of each bottle, we have embossed on it terroir, traceability, and transparency. Because to have true terroir, you have to have traceability and transparency. You have to be able to show people where it's coming from. So it's under the umbrella of provenance.
Okay.
So, that's what it comes down to.
I do love the Provenance Map where we have this is where it comes from.
Yeah.
I do love it.
Yeah.
So the next one is, I have it here on my side,
Yeah.
Lakefield 1.1.
Lakefield, yeah. So
That's from, what was it?
Seamus Duggan, yes.
Duggan,
yeah.
yes.
So the first one, Tinnashrule, John Crowley's, is from Wexford, and Seamus Duggan is in County Laois.
Oh, okay.
So Wexford is in the southeast, and Laois is in the Midlands. The Tinnashrule actually was a German exclusive release.
Okay.
And Lakefield is a worldwide release. So this is Lakefield 1.1. And again, you can see the colour is very light. I would say it's probably light straw or very light honey or and the oils then again on the glass are very good, very slow, and they just grip the glass, and that's what we're looking for, really slow tears or legs. That's a really good indication probably of a couple of things.
Small.
Yeah, a couple of things. It's it also is an indication of the strength of the alcohol in wine. That's the case, but in here as well, it also indicates how slow it'll coat your mouth and how oily it should be.
Oiliness.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh. So straight away when I smell it, I'm smelling a flower bed.
This is a bit where the others were more cereal in maltiness.
Yeah.
This is a bit more, feels more like a white bread, like a finer, finest cereal.
So this is more of a wholemeal brown bread rustic, where this is
I almost wanted to say wheat, but
no, but it
feels like wheat. There's no wheat in it.
No, but it reminds you a little bit of that, but definitely has that a flower bed note to that freshness to it as well.
Yeah, that's a bit strange to combine these two flavors, but
and there's a little bit of that real green grass in there as well.
It feels a little bit of a citrus note as well, but that doesn't match well with with the flowery one. Okay, maybe a citric, like a citric cake
but
or something.
What we found in our terroir project is that there's a lot of components to barley. There's a lot of different components to barley. So our nose will only capture so many.
Yeah.
So what you might smell and I might smell are slightly different, but there is that orange marmalade kind of peel.
Yes, orange marmalade, but not one of these bitter ones.
No.
The lighter ones. But yes,
Yeah.
you could go into orange. I would maybe say, maybe it's lemonade, maybe it's orange,
or even
something in between.
The tree peel marmalade. So you get lemon, lime, and orange in one marmalade.
I've never had that.
Yeah,
but it feels like a combination or something in between.
Yeah.
It's hard to describe flavors.
But it's very this nose as well is very inviting. It's very it's very elegant. This one is a little bit more Tinnashrule. It's a little bit more meaty, if that makes sense. It's a little bit more
bit more oomph to it.
A bit more robust, yes. Whereas this one is a bit more elegant on the nose. Again, 50% non-chill filters. So, sláinte.
Sláinte. The taste is not as light as I would have expected.
And
it has much more volume to it than expected from the nose.
And what they'll find with a lot of our whiskies is, as you'll have a couple of experiences. The nose is one experience, the taste is something different. This kind of starts off gentle and then it comes in and packs a punch.
Yes, you have similarities to the nose. You have that orange, you have that lemon still in there, but the volume is much different from what you nose it.
It comes in and there's a kind of a peppery kind of not even a clove note, but it's kind of a five spice, a little gentle kind of five spice.
Yeah, there's a bit of spiciness in there. You don't have that in the nose at all.
No, and a little bit of maybe lemon sherbet, lemon, but kind of lemon powder, the way in some sweets. Yeah.
Yes, the citrusy note is quite present here.
And very tingly.
Tingly, yeah.
Tingly, a little bit like popping candy kind of tingle,
You had me with the lemon powder. It's like, I don't want to say it, but it feels like a little bit what was the kids have these powders.
The dip dab
things,
It
has a bit like that, not as hard.
Not as harsh, but a little bit of it,
Well, tingly, yeah. So my question, next question for me will be, okay, you had equipment here, but the process I was taking in from you and explaining it here all the way, it's quite difficult. If when the process is set up, yes, you keep it, but the setting up process, what was that? How long did you take? Was it hard?
Yes and no. So I suppose we were lucky with what Diageo had left here. So they left the full brew house. What they did do is they wiped all the software. So you saw the software earlier on, so that had to be rewritten.
Oh.
Okay, and also what we had to do then is we had to get stills, because the stills weren't here.
Yeah.
So Mark had some stills that he was able to get reconditioned by Forsyths. And I suppose we're a little bit different than we double distill. Some Irish distilleries would say that Irish whiskey is triple distill, but you can double or triple. We double distill. So the stills were probably the biggest thing to get. There was a lot of pipes that had to be taken out and fixed up. But we were a year and 4 days after the site was bought. We had our first trial spirit run. So very, very quickly,
Okay, and how was it to get into the process of single farm? When was the first single farm set up?
So the first single farm that came in January of 2016. After we did an initial trial in the end of December 2015, and we were very lucky, in everything that happened. In that, in the first year, we only had 4 hours downtime.
Wow.
So we laid down nearly 1 million litres of stock in the first year, which was unbelievable. And we took our time, and the one thing that we do here is there's no hurry. Everything is low and slow, as we like to say. So when we started, for us it was running in the stills and getting used to where we wanted to make our cut points and how much we wanted to charge the stills. We had a good understanding of the brewing, because it was, the same brew house that we'd used before. So once we kind of got that up and running, it was kind of focusing on how we distilled and where we met our cut points and that. So it took us a few farms to get in on that. But using the single farms is quite easy in the site here, because everything is, pushes through, and we clean after each farm.
Oh, so, you have to clean off.
So it just lends itself nicely to doing single farms. It lends itself nicely to doing single farms. So I suppose the startup went very well for us. We were very surprised, and I think the owners here were very surprised, because they didn't anticipate that we were going to get a full year's production.
Okay.
So they were delighted when we laid down 6,500 casks in the first year. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's good when you want to start up the distillery, because usually it's like, we have the first bottling, everything's sold out. And when you have a bigger lot, then it's just nice.
Yeah.
So the next one is the cuvée. So it has a different color of stopper then.
Yeah. So I suppose the single farms will have a yellow stopper, Vinlock, and the cuvée has a pink one. And the reason it's pink is to match the label. So the label was specially designed by an artist in Dublin called Leah Houston, and so she designed this especially for it. So the cuvée, I suppose, is the signature bottles that we will be doing going forward. We'll have one maybe every year or every year and a half, and it'll be a worldwide release. So what the cuvée is like wine, it's a combination. So this is actually a combination of 25 farms brought together. There's 156 casks in this, and I think the breakdown in this is 38% American first fill, 19% American new, 19% French. And if my maths are right, it should be 24% VDN. So each single farm or each cuvée will have a mixture of different casks as well.
Okay, so that is how many different farms is that?
So 25 farms in this.
25 farms.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this one then, the youngest whiskey in this is 4.5 years old, and the oldest is just over 5 years old. So.
Okay. So hard to say, but it's still the single malt, because it's
it's still a single malt. Yeah, it's just
for you. It's more of it's a cuvée blend from more farms.
And I suppose sometimes we have to be careful when we talk about blend, because it's not a blended whiskey.
Yeah, it's.
But what I would say it's a marriage of farms.
Marriage, yes.
Marriage of farms. Yeah,
yes.
Marriage of farms. So what I would say too is the single farms are stepping stone. They're a snapshot of the barley and the farm. What the cuvée is an expression of the distillery. It's the style, our style of spirit. But even on the nose now, for me, it's a lot more complicated. It's a lot more complex.
Yeah.
Because you have different levels, you have layers and Wilfoys there that will come together. Again, really excellent oils, and probably this one is a little bit darker than the single farms. So when I'm smelling it, it has a butteriness, richness to it.
Yes, a buttery note.
Yeah.
That's. I was thinking about it. What it was.
Yeah, and it has that buttery, and it also has.
Also a maltiness. The maltiness cannot be denied. It's just.
And I would say it nearly is. It reminds me of when you open the oven and there's bread cooking in the oven, crispy bread. Yeah, so it's the crispy bread on.
Yeah, a bit like that. Yeah. Also, a little bit. Not quite sure if it's crispy bread or maybe it's crispy nut as well. A bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see the nut. Yeah.
Yeah, some people put nuts in their bread.
Yeah. Maybe slightly almond.
Yeah.
Slightly almond.
Something
like
that. Roasted almond.
And on the nose as well, for me, there's a little bit of that clove sweets. I don't know if you're familiar. They're a hard sweet that has red and white sweet. Maybe you don't get them in Germany.
I don't know that. I know cloves, but I don't know the sweets of that.
Yeah, so it's a sweet that we would get here that just reminds me that sometimes whiskey is a memory rather than a taste.
When you nose a whiskey, you have so many associations, and you think, where have I tried that? Where have I smelled that?
Yeah, and or it can be music or colours, but unfortunately, we always talk about food because that's the way we're able to get it across.
It's 90% food, and the rest of the 10% is beverages.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, there's a little bit of brown sugar there as well.
It feels a little bit more mature though.
Yeah. And it is a little bit more mature, but it also, it's an inviting nose where you go back and you're kind of going, I'm getting something slightly different now again. Because there is a little bit of that red fruit, even blackberries.
There's a bit of a fruity note. The thing is, here is a bit more different stuff crammed into one whiskey. The other ones had a distinctive style in one direction. This one is more spread out.
Which it should be, because it's a combination. Sláinte.
Sláinte. These really nose different to taste.
And that is the thing. Like, it is, like I said before, it's two experiences. You're kind of going, okay, where did this come from? I wasn't expecting.
It's dry. It has some wine notes, some grape notes in it.
It's dry but chewable. It's a strange.
But also, one similarity to the nose is the maturity, I would say.
Yes, yeah. and even the length on it is very, very good. There's a lovely kind of watery note coming there now. Even though it is dry, it's starting to water a little bit for me. And it just has a really nice. If you were to look at it like a note or music, it's a bit like that. It flows along, it's a lovely wave.
Yeah, the finish is holding out. It's still holding out. I love the finish on that one.
It reminds me of just there's a bit of greenness in the front. Even when I go back to smell it, there's a little bit of green foliage that kind of comes through. There's a lovely white pepper note that just holds there at the start as well for me. And it's really the finish is it's not a finish. It just keeps going. And actually a lovely vegetable note there as well now.
It's nice. It's holding out, and again with this one especially, it's very nice for a 50% one.
Yes,
it's. I would even say a little bit beginner friendly. Okay, the grapey notes is maybe a bit overwhelming, but for people who like wine, I would say that is a nice entry into whiskey. So this is a lot different to other distilleries. And how is the whiskey perceived worldwide? What feedback did you get?
Yeah, I suppose social media and everything was very mixed at the start. When we talk about terroir, it's kind of seen as a concept that's not accepted or wasn't accepted. It seems to be a bit more accepted now. I suppose what we can go on is our first bottles that we released. Should have lasted probably 6 or 9 months, and they were sold out in 20 hours or something like that. So they sold out really, really quickly. I think people are open to the idea, and people are open to the conversation. It's also bringing probably new people into the whiskey world.
Do you have like a lot of people who associated with wine and come from the wine scene?
Yes, a little bit, I suppose. But there's also the whiskey people who are interested. And I suppose what we're seeing is a lot of younger whiskey drinkers and a lot of female drinkers as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, a lot of female drinkers and who are interested in, and it's maybe down to the concept or even people who are gastronomes or food people who want to know where their food is coming from, want to know where their produce is coming from as well. And that, we sit in perfectly in that as well. So we can cross a lot of different areas. Some people won't care where it comes from. They'll want to know about the taste, and a lot of people are actually very interested in the design of the bottle and the colour of the bottle. And,
okay.
So we're capturing a lot of different things. And then, of course, there's people who don't like it at all.
There's always these people.
Everyone's entitled to their opinion. The other thing is the people who are looking for consistency. And we won't have a consistent product.
Yeah,
we will have a very good product.
No consistency.
But we won't have a consistent bottle of whiskey. You're not going to get the same whiskey every time, like, you know.
You really don't have a core range, do you?
Well, the Cuvée will be the core range as such. But as I said, what we're doing is we're trying to promote the barley. We're trying to give the barley its best chance into whiskey. So it's whatever the barley says, that's the flavour, and that's what we work with, like, you know.
So, and also I've seen you have a lot of organic, biodynamic, and what I really find cool is the heritage.
Yeah.
So what is it perceived in that kind of, there's a scene growing up with people who only go with heritage vegetables and stuff?
Yeah, I suppose what we were looking for is a quest for different flavours. You know, so we say with the conventional barley is one aspect, and we have our Arcadian series then, which covers organic, biodynamic and heritage. And it's to look for different flavours. So one of the things that we found is the barleys that we use in modern varieties for distilling are closely related. They're bred for yield for the farmer and for the distillery or the brewery, and they're not bred for flavour. So what we just decided to do was look back at old varieties. So that's where the Heritage Project started a number of years ago. So the first one we'll be bringing out at the end of the year is Hunter, which was around 1956. Then we did Gold Top, which was around 1901. Old Irish, which was pre-1900. So those are the heritage varieties, and they're very different. Organic then and biodynamic are just different philosophies in farming, and the flavours are very different, because with the likes of organic, you're not using artificial fertilizers or sprays, and with biodynamic then you're farming with the cycles of the earth and the moon. You're using some preparations that are part of their philosophy for fertilizer and for sprays as well, in terms of natural sprays. Like they will get silica and bury it in cow horn, and they'll take it up and they'll spray it. And that was an old way of keeping flies and that off flowers and plants, and that's what the biodynamic farmers do.
Okay, I think there's probably a market for people who say, I'm really into biodynamic.
But the funny thing about it is probably 8 of the top 10 wines in the world are grown biodynamically. They just don't talk about it because it's part of the wine, the way they do their grow
is
their
it
grapes.
part of their heritage?
Yeah, it's part of their heritage. It's part of that.
So they've always been done.
They've always done it like that.
The thing is, if you go with heritage, I would say if you go back to the very, very roots of Irish distilling, then I think everything was heritage back in the day.
Biodynamic, organic, and heritage are just terms for old farming.
Yeah. Back in the days, they couldn't do what we do today.
No. So
everybody did.
Where did fertilizer come from?
Modern.
Yeah, it's very modern, and it's big. It was used to get more food for and all that. Like, but prior to that, it was dung and whatever. So yeah.
Okay, so the last one that we have is gonna be
the organic.
The organic
2.1. Yeah. So this one has a blue vinlock. The biodynamic will have a green vinlock, and I'm not sure what the heritage one is going to have.
I think on the Provenance Map it was kind of similar to what we have with Cuvée, maybe a bit darker. Or something like purple in that direction. Something
like that, yeah. So this is the organic, and this actually, when we started, we didn't have single farm organics. So in this there's 6 different farmers. But in the last few years, the farms have grown to supply single organic farms, single batches. So we have a number of farmers now who are supplying us 75 tons of malt barley, and when we started, we had to get 6 farmers together
to get one of these
to do it. Yeah.
So you are really boosting the organic farming in Ireland.
Yeah, we're giving them, I suppose, a market, and also the organic farmers and the biodynamic farmers, by doing it year on year, hone it a little bit more. So when we did start with the biodynamic, the 3 farmers that come together for biodynamic, I think it gave us something like 46 tons. This year they had 75 tons, just because they're honed, because they hadn't been growing barley commercially, I suppose, as such, whereas they've done it for a few years now.
Mm-hmm.
So when I smell this, it just reminds me of a field. It is a dry soil note to it.
This one, I do get the soil note that you have from, I think we had it, you mentioned it in the first one. This time I do get it.
Yeah.
That has a bit of a grassy, earthy touch to it.
It's compared to some of the others, it's a fresher, fresher, more vibrant one as well. I think if we go back to the first one, Tinnashrule.
It's more like the Tinnashrule, but I would even say a bit more into the earthy tone, where this one was more into the what you said, coarse bread, not rye bread, but like a bit of a farmer's bread.
Brown bread, as we
brown bread. Yeah,
we would, we'd have brown bread here, and and that.
And this one is more of a earthy tone to it. The Delivery has also a bit of a floral notes to it.
Yeah,
it's really down to earth.
it is down to earth, and it reminds me a little bit, when you're in the forest, and sometimes when it rains, and you have that smell from the forest with some of that green foliage that has rained a little bit. It just reminds me of that a little bit there now.
I like it.
I'm going to say a little bit of salt, a little bit of salinity on the nose.
Waterford is near the ocean, right? But But where is that coming from?
So this is a mixture of 6 farms around the Midlands.
Midlands. Okay.
But actually, the salinity will come from
something else.
The minerality in the ground. It'll come from the soil. So you'll get some of that from the soil. Franche?
There's a bit more attacking than
this
is a bit more.
This is very not aggressive, but very.
Compared to the others, I would say aggressive, but it still feels like you have the distillery's character still in there as a.
But it's very much more kind of in your face now.
But with fruitiness and with floralness.
There's
the earthiness. Maybe in the finish, you can talk about that, but it's not as prominent as in the nose.
No, and when you do taste it. It starts off with the fruitiness, Nelly. Then there's a bit of an oomph, kind of a spice bomb goes off for a second. There's some aniseed there. Very chewy, very robust, very.
The second one, it's adding up with the spiciness on the second sip.
Yeah.
No, but I like it. It's totally different to the others. This is far away from the others, I would say.
Yeah.
So totally far away from the Lakefield.
From the Lakefield, Lakefield is probably
vibrant,
chalk and cheese,
and nice and flowery and even like a little bit of wheat flavor in there. And here's this heavy and robust on the. What is it? Oh, I like it.
And it is very soily on the finish. It's very, it's very rich, very earthy.
And also the finish is long.
Yeah.
So there's one thing. We have an article up on. Let's do this one. Written more clearly on that. We have an article on our website, like what's the difference between whiskey and whiskey, and with all the story about how the whiskey was in Ireland with the column still and everything, and so now every whiskey in Ireland is spelled whiskey, and everything that's heritage to Ireland is whiskey, and you spell it without E. Why do you do that?
Because we can, I suppose. So in Ireland, the technical file says you can spell whiskey with or without an E.
Okay.
and you can double or triple distill.
Yes.
So we double distill, and we chose not to use E in the whiskey. And there's a few different reasons. Is because I suppose the whiskey was the marketing term probably to separate from Scotch and that.
Yes.
But the old way of spelling it would have had no E.
Yes, before the whole 1830.
Yeah. So we're probably, and what we're doing is probably looking at the older way of doing things as well, like keeping the farm separate, doing single farms, heritage grains, biodynamics, organics. But also it's probably a little play on the fact that we don't use caramel, which is E158. Little bit of a play on that as well. And it's probably to stand out from the Irish whiskey as such.
Okay, so because you are a bit different to the Irish whiskey.
Yeah.
So you feel like you're okay.
Yeah, it's slightly different, I suppose. The fact that we are only using Irish barley, and we chose to do that. It takes a lot of money, in fairness, to do that. I'm not saying other distilleries are right or wrong, but it's just something a little bit different for us, I suppose.
Okay, yeah, because I find it really, really funny. In America, you have all the whiskey, and there are also some distilleries that have a whiskey. And it's just in the end, it's just no matter how you want to spell it.
Yeah, and we got a good bit of flack for not having an E in our whiskey.
Really?
Yeah, we did. Yes, we've had people message us telling us we've spelt it wrong, and it's outside the building. We have without the E, and we have people commenting in saying, oh, you'd want to get that checked, and whoever did that sign is don't pay him. But you know what it is though? It's a way of we have an article up as well to E or not to E, and so it's a way of just saying, yeah, listen, here's the information and have a read of it. And it's just like at the end of the day, like we're not going to say, oh, you're wrong. It's just here's a bit of information that'll educate you on this, and if you want to read it, great. And if you don't, we're not wrong.
We're also without the E.
Without the E,
we're not the E ones.
Yeah.
Okay, so very nice overview. Thank you very much for the tasting and all the information. Thank you very much for having us here at the distillery.
Okay. I suppose the other thing is that's just a snapshot of some of our whiskies.
Yes. Yeah. So thank you very much for watching. Go out there, find these Waterford whiskies. If you've for some reason found the ones that we have, you might as well now see how they are. But they are really, 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 really different. Yeah. So and if you ever come to the south coast of Ireland, then give this place a go. It's really nice to see. And yeah, thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.